It was so impactful for me to start off selling at a shop versus like on an Etsy shop or like my own website. I've been back home from Montana for a day and we're leaving again tomorrow. So I feel like my turnaround time has just been really crazy and I've been trying to get everything finished and ready for Ohana before we leave again. I usually don't like a tight turnaround like this because I like to settle back in and then leave again. But this trip, it's kind of this road trip, so it'll be really low key. We're meeting up with some friends in the desert who are also doing a little work from home stint, so I don't feel like I'm actually just leaving work behind and going on a, international trip or anything like that. It's just a nice road trip to get out of town. It's been super gloomy here today and we finally got our first snow, so we are in mud season is what we call it here in our mountain town. So it's just a nice time to get out of town, and I feel like I actually knit the most on road trips. So I'm gonna bring a bunch of yarn, get a bunch of knitting done, and then bring my computer and, get all of those things done too. But yesterday was my 7-year anniversary of starting this business. If you watched the last couple of videos, I mentioned this India trip that I went on with my friend Amy that I just saw in Montana, and after that trip, I created my Instagram account and I sold my first beanies to some coworkers, and from there, that is how my business really began. And it's so crazy to think that it's been 7 years. That fall, I also got into my first local shop, and that's actually how I started selling. I didn't start at markets or Etsy or anything like that. I started selling to coworkers and then immediately got into this local store, and that's where I made my first sales. And after that season, I quit my job at the restaurant to work on a local farm, and I spent a couple years at this farm, which was an amazing experience, first of all, but it gave me some stable income, but also a low-key job so that I could build these side hustles to the point where I was able to quit that job and go full-time. And I think it's really hard when you're first starting out to envision that that's where you can get to, but it all starts from somewhere. And so it's really fun looking back. I can't believe it's been 7 years. And right now, being in this mid pivot, going into the next 7 years, I'm just so excited to see where it takes us. But given all of that, I thought it'd be really cool to chat a little bit more about how I sell at local shops and how I got into that first shop. A lot of you have been asking me how to do that, so I thought I'd break that down a little bit today. And we need to go drop stuff off at Ohana anyway, so I could actually bring you there. But I need to make some breakfast. I had a really low-key morning, but let's eat something and then get going. We have officially moved on from yogurt season to oatmeal season. one of the main ways that I sell my handmade goods is at a local shop. I have 2 local shops in town that carry my goods, and at the beginning of my business, it was the best learning process in figuring out how to sell, what people liked, how to price my stuff, and all of that. So I just finished palming and tagging some beanies to bring to the shop today, and I thought I'd bring you along to see the shop and my friend who actually manages it. They have changed a lot over the years as well, but they were the first place where I started selling. And over half of my revenue for my handmade goods comes from local shops. And in the last few years, I've noticed that I sell more at the shops than I have in my online shop. And I don't know how much of that is how much effort I'm putting into the marketing versus just how much traffic is starting to go towards brick and mortar stores, but that's what I've noticed. So today I thought I'd just share with you how you can get started selling in local shops, what I've learned on that journey, and I've definitely learned a lot of lessons along the way. So I drop about once a week to the local shops, and for me that just helps me get into a nice rhythm, and there's not too much backstock at the shops so that I can make sure I can manage my online store, but I'm also dropping regularly to make sure I can check in on the store and all that stuff. And so at my local shops, one of them I sell on consignment and the other I sell wholesale. So if you're not familiar with wholesale, basically the shop purchases the items from you at a wholesale price, and then they get to mark it up and sell it at the shop, but they own those items. On consignment, I own the items, and so usually you get a bigger cut of that, and I get paid out depending on what sells. And over the years, I've learned about how many items sell every month, and I've been tracking it since the beginning. Well, I guess I've been tracking it since 2020 when I went full-time. And just a little side story, in 2020, I was working at a local farm and had 2 side hustles, and I'd gotten to the point in my side hustles where I was like, what would happen if I quit my job and put all of my effort into working on my businesses? And so my last day of work was supposed to be March 18th, and of course the world shut down. So fortunately or unfortunately, I had already set myself up to be self-employed when that all happened, so it was very coincidental, but it really kickstarted my journey. But I had been selling for several years before that, so I kind of had an idea of what I was doing. So that's just a little aside. So I have a log of what I bring to the shop every single month, and this is the consignment, because for wholesale orders, they're ordering and then you're bringing it. So I try to keep a tally so that every year I can look back and see about how much I brought the year before. I can track what I brought in total, and so that kind of gives me an idea of what I should be aiming for, what I can expect in this next year. And of course, every year has been different, so it's not completely accurate, of course, but it'll give you a better idea. So I'm gonna just put all the numbers of the types of hats that I'm bringing in right now, and then we'll go to the store. Check. I'm so excited for fall weather. I've been waiting to wear these corduroys.
Take me to the ruins, aquifers and springs, baby ferns uncurling, every living.
Before you even think about actually selling at a local shop, the best thing to do is to see what's in your local community and see what shops are already selling handmade goods, supporting makers and artists and things like that, because that means they'll already have a system for how they like to do that. They'll even be able to guide you and support you if you're new to it. And for me, that was definitely the best part of getting into a shop right away, was because they were able to guide me on things like pricing, the types of styles that got to sell well, the tags I wanted, and the types of info I wanted to include for the customers. So that was all super important. The second thing is to really find a shop that also aligns with your values. So what is the vibe of the store? Do they support women's rights, LGBTQ rights, if that's something important to you? Do they have some sort of philanthropy aspect to them? Like, do they donate back to things in the community? Like, all of these things you'll be able to see very clearly, and find the one that really aligns with your values, because not only will you feel good about selling through the shop, the types of people attracted to this shop will also be aligned with your products.
Read to me a poem, sing to you a song, drunk in my devotion, laid out on your chest, student of a band.
Welcome to Ohana!
All at once in a dream, we are
Right, so I just restocked the shop, but my bestie Kate also happens to be the manager of both of the shops that I sell at, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to like sit down and ask her what she thinks and how she chooses the vendors, because I know for me, one of the best tips I was given was to actually make an appointment with the person who's going to choose what is going to be in the shop, because when you come into a store, they're in the middle of their workday, they're busy, you don't know what's going to be going on in the shop, but if you have an appointment with them, they have planned to dedicate that time to talking to you. So let's just go chat with her for a sec.
All at once in a dream, we are together. You could call it a vision or a telling.
Okay, so I'm here with Kate, and she's the best. She curates all of the vendors for Ohana and Upcountry, which are the two shops that I sell my stuff, and we've become best friends over the years, and literally, like, she is the best. Like, the best.
Shireen's the best.
You're the best. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk to her about how she chooses vendors and a little bit about that process, because I know for me, selling at a local shop was like instrumental in starting my business journey. And so, you know, I feel like not a lot of people talk about that process. So I guess the first thing I was telling them about how I made an appointment, because if you don't make an appointment, you don't know if the person is busy, you don't have their full attention. So what would you say about that?
Well, I want to say that working with artists is my favorite part of the job. I mean, I love working in the retail shop and I love my team, but managing artists and getting to be a part of the journey of so many of our small vendors is like truly the best. I inherited Shireen. She was already a part of Ohana when I came on to manage, but since then your business, you've gone full time. We've expanded. We have her goods in our Breck location and our sister store, so that's been really cool. But yeah, you're so right. An appointment is really helpful. I am really flattered when people come in and they are so excited and have brought things to show me, but your art is really special and I want to give it the time and attention it deserves. And so it's always helpful if you stop in and introduce yourself and maybe make a connection to follow up. But coming into a store on a busy Saturday with your art is not the best way to make the initial connection. And I do think kind of scoping out the store, maybe social media, going in person if you can, to really see if your style and vibe align, or if there's a need, right? Not that you would necessarily know that, but if you have a niche that you make and you didn't see it in the store, that's even more exciting.
For sure. Like I'm the only real hat vendor, and I do knits, but I basically only make hats. Like I'll do some cowls, I'll do some headbands, but from a product standpoint, like you only carry my stuff essentially, yeah. Right? Like you have some of your own branded line. So basically Ohana, the shop itself, the owners are artists, so they draw and then everything gets hand screen printed onto apparel and home goods and stuff like that. But then the rest of the shop, I mean, you have over 100 other vendors. So I tried to show you as much as I could of the shop, but it's just so well curated.
Thank you,
it's
babe.
One of those places like you walk in, and I know for me as a customer, like that's why I sought out Ohana when I first started selling. I was like, I want to be in that shop. Like it's so cute. It's like got the vibe. And you have expanded. Like they moved to this bigger location that used to be a really small space. And then you've since opened another shop and Upcountry. So yeah. I feel like we've kind of grown together.
I would agree
too. But okay, so you were talking about like checking out the vibes and the values, and that's kind of what I was telling you earlier. Like, what are you looking for?
So at Ohana, we focus mostly on Colorado-based artists. We have expanded into kind of like the Northwest or like Rocky Mountain region. So that's usually my first kind of question is where are people based? But that doesn't like disqualify somebody if I like their art or there's a connection. I mean, we definitely look for small, handmade. Bonus if it's women or people of color owned. As far as values go, like as a shop, we've come a long way, and I mean our personal values shine through the branding and the business. We want makers to be aligned, and I think from like what Shireen said, like hopefully when you walk in, it's a inclusive and welcoming space. I work really hard with my staff on that. And so I want people to echo that, right? And I can kind of dig a little bit and see if that's in somebody's business ethos, but typically it's from that like personal and natural connection.
Yeah, and you guys do a lot of like philanthropy, you know, like those print days and like donating back. And like, I know for me, like, you know, you guys were so supportive when I was like, I'm going to be part of 1% for the planet and I'm going to donate back. I want to make sure when people buy from the shop. So that's another thing that's different from selling wholesale or consignment is you don't have control of how your products are presented. But Ohana is really great about explaining the values behind the ethically and sustainably sourced wools and the donating back. And I have my cards that they put in the bag, for example, when people buy something. So I mean,
I want customers to know like why, you know, her beanies are so special or why an art piece is so special. And I think telling the story speaks volumes for that. Like they're shopping around, they're seeing things all over, but why would they want to purchase from you? And I think, you know, as a brand as Ohana, like what you were saying, our stuff is homemade. So then it kind of goes into the art as well.
It's more than just a shop. It's like a community space. And so when you go look for shops in your community, like you can see what the different shops are doing. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you vibe with them, they will likely vibe with your stuff too. So that's kind of, I mean, I feel like those are like the biggest things.
I think so
seeking
too.
something out.
Yeah,
Like,
we look for price point. Like, is it aligned with the shop? Like, I want things to kind of mesh well and to have like this range of prices, but that definitely comes into consideration. Shireen consigns, but other makers wholesale. So that kind of is just a brand preference and what works for your shop. And then what else was I going to say? Don't worry if you haven't had any experience or if you don't have a wholesale line or if it's your first account. Like, I love getting makers that are building their business. It's so exciting, and don't let that be a barrier. And like, you definitely have resources if you're interested in getting into a shop. And
comment below. Like, if you have questions, comment below. I will answer them.
Yes.
And like I said, it was so impactful for me to start off selling at a shop versus like on an Etsy shop or like my own website, because there were so many little things that I figured out by, you know, I started off selling like, I think I dropped off 10 products and thought I'd be good for the season.
Yeah, right. I can sell 10 of hers at a day in the high season.
Yeah, so, but yeah, so it was kind of like a huge learning process.
Yeah.
Even just being able to figure that out and talking with you and the owners, like what makes sense, what doesn't, all that stuff. So anyway.
And to have people be able to come in and touch your goods.
Yes.
And even if product isn't moving or you're like feeling discouraged, like we all have slow seasons, especially in the mountains, but people might have come in and maybe they didn't buy today, but they'll come back next time, or they learned about the brand and they'll go onto Shireen's website or follow her on Instagram. Like, there are ways that will grow your brand and your business that might not come from a sale that day, right?
Totally. And that's happened so many times. And again, why branding is so important and why connecting with a shop that is aligned is so important.
I love you. I'm so proud of you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for chatting with my people.
Gosh, yay, so fun.
Yay. But yes, don't forget to comment below if you have questions about this, and you know, I'll chat with you a little bit more when we get home.
I just realized I didn't even get to take you over to Upcountry, which is 2 doors down from Ohana. But another thing I forgot to mention earlier when we were at the shop was that one of the reasons why it's so important to choose a shop that aligns with you, your values, your vibe, everything, is also that a lot of the people walking into the shop, they were not coming in to buy a beanie. You know what I mean? Like, they might have been looking for something else or just window shopping, see your item and are like, whoa, I love this so much. And I have definitely had it where people might come and buy a beanie when they're on vacation, and then they go home, they love the product, and then they order from my website or follow me on Instagram them and things like that. So that's why it's so important to find a shop that aligns, because that happens all the time. And I've even had it where people might come up from Denver and like a journalist or something on vacation, they see the items and they're like, oh wow, a Colorado handmade seller. And then I've gotten reached out to be part of these media projects. Or like last year I went to Minnesota because of being a Colorado maker and just sharing about my work. So you never know who's going to see it. You never know what might happen. It might be someone who's looking for gifts and they don't know what they're looking for, but they see your stuff and they're like, wow, this is perfect. So anyway, definitely lots of benefits from selling at the shop. And when you make a connection with the people that run the shop or the employees, like all of the people that work at Ohana, they know me face to face, they know my name, and so they're more likely to be able to answer questions about your stuff or even sell it for you. You know what I mean? Like they might talk your stuff up to people coming in. So those are just all really amazing benefits of selling at a local shop. And Kate really gave so many great tips on how to approach a shop and what to look for and what to bring. And I just really attribute a lot of my initial success to being part of Ohana. And the last point I really want to make about selling locally, and really for yourself too, is about pricing. Because I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but usually when you sell on consignment or wholesale, on consignment it can be anywhere from 30 to 50% cut. And for wholesale, it's your wholesale pricing, which is typically 50%, and then the shop marks it up as they see fit. And so if they're taking a 40% cut, you better have your pricing well enough where you are still making a profit from it. And I know a lot of handmade sellers are not pricing themselves, especially knitters, are not pricing themselves well enough to have a successful, sustainable business. And how I calculate mine is I make sure, of course, that I account for the yarn itself, the material, or all of the material costs. That is the yarn, the pom-poms, the tags, everything like that. And then I make sure I account for my time. And so I pay myself an hourly wage to do that calculation. I also add anywhere from $3 to $5 to that basic price for my overheads. So maybe it's like, you know, it's a blanket cost for covering things like your internet fees, your website fee, all of these different fees that are part of running a business, those have to be accounted for somewhere. So I build all of that in to that price, and then I mark that up. And how I've done it is I calculate all of that, and then I multiply it by 1.75, and that's kind of like that ballpark retail price. And what they'll tell you actually is that that's only the wholesale cost, and you should double that for the retail. But if I was to sell it like that, I would have to charge $150 or more for a hat. Because of the materials I use, all of those are really high quality materials. It's ethically and sustainably sourced wool, so it is a premium item. And so I do think I can be pricing my products a little bit higher, but I have felt comfortable at the prices that I've been selling. I'm still making a profit. My business is very healthy, but it's worth playing around too. So this is something I'm also working on as far as the growth of my business. So I hope that gave you a little bit of an idea of how you should approach a shop if you're looking to sell at one, or even just some inspiration to check out some local stores and see what they're all about. If you are an artist, maker, or small business owner getting started, and even if you've been doing this for a long time and want to be around a community of other creatives and small business owners, I have a free community on Discord. The link is down in the description, but join that community. It's a new community, so it's growing, but people are there to share resources, vent about things, or just share ideas, ask questions, whatever. So the community is free. I do also have some free resources in the community for you too that are helpful for small business. And of course, anytime, like comment below, ask questions in the community and that kind of thing. And if you're looking for even more support on your small business journey, I am hosting a creative small business retreat to Iceland in January, and we already have 9 women signed up at all different stages of the business. We have some people who have been self-employed for years. We have some people who just have an idea for the business and want to be around people and get like a kickstart to their journey and a roadmap for how to do it. And we have a couple people who've been in it for a couple of years but are ready to take it to the next level or just want a little bit more clarity and alignment. So I have all of that info below. I hope this was super helpful for you. I know this is a little bit different from my typical vlogs and videos, but I wanted to share this info, so I hope you found it helpful. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video.